"You're not coming to the wedding." That's what the text from Mom said, short, cold, and straight to the point. "Ryan's family doesn't want you there." I smiled and texted back. "So you're picking appearances over family, huh?" Before she could reply, I pulled up the wedding planner site, logged into my account, and cancelled the venue reservation. It was under my name. My card. They didn't even know that part. The kicker. The deposit was non-refundable. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and just looked at the wall for a while. Was I angry? Not really. Sad? Not yet. It felt more like something inside me had shifted, like I was no longer living it, just watching the whole mess from the sidelines. They'd pulled stunts before. Not this obvious, not spelled out in big bold letters, but I'd felt the shift for a long time. In the way they side-eyed me at dinners. In the jokes that stung a little more than they should have. In the way they forgot my birthday 3 years running and blamed it on some group chat glitch. Sophie was the golden child now. The daughter they'd always dreamed of. And me? I was just Ethan. Handy Ethan. Quiet Ethan. The guy who showed up and got things done. I helped pick out her dress boutique. I handled the first round of catering negotiations. I found the Airbnb for the out-of-towners. When Ryan's folks whined that the Colorado Lodge was too rustic, I tracked down a luxury spot with a lake view. I even built the Save the Date website. They used my Canva account, still had my login. But now, I was suddenly a problem. Why? Because Sophie's dad didn't like my vibe. Because I wore black to brunch. Because I dared to ask where $3,000 of catering money disappeared to, and didn't just shut up when Mom waved it off with a "just trust us." They leaned on me every time they needed something, until the second they didn't. Now they were assembling their perfect little family photo, all smiles and sparkle. And I didn't make the cut. So I took a breath and opened up our shared folder. Sophie and Ryan wedding planning. I scrolled through the photos, the contracts, the vendor info, all 63 files I'd uploaded. One by one, I deleted them. Then I renamed the folder. Good luck without me. I didn't send a warning. Didn't explain a thing. They could figure it out when the florist didn't get confirmation. Or when the photographer ghosted. Or when the venue emailed them. Unfortunately, this reservation has been cancelled by the account holder. They expected me to stay quiet. To swallow it, like I always had. But this wasn't just about some wedding. This was the final snap of a cord that had been fraying for years. They handed me the scissors and were shocked when I actually used them. They wanted me gone. Wish granted. They just didn't realize I'd take the scaffolding with me when I walked away. And believe me, I was only getting started. If you ask them, I've always been the dramatic one. The one who overthinks, who makes mountains out of molehills. But let me tell you how I became that guy. Let's rewind. 6 months ago. Friday night. Sophie called me, crying. Ryan had just lost his job. Their downtown apartment was 3 months behind on rent. They tried to reason with the landlord, but he wanted every penny. Or he'd file eviction papers first thing Monday. I didn't hesitate. Transferred $4,100 from my savings. Told her to call me if she needed anything else. That was the 3rd time I'd bailed them out that year. The first? When Dad overdrew from his retirement account and needed $5,200 to dodge the penalties. The second? When Mom forgot that Sophie's bachelorette Airbnb was booked on my card, and the girls wrecked the place. I kept track. Spreadsheets. Screenshots. Not because I planned to use them, but to remind myself I wasn't losing it. That I wasn't imagining this slow, constant drain of money, energy, and time into a family that treated me like some invisible donor. And it wasn't just the cash. It was the way they acted after I helped, like I was hired help. The guy behind the scenes, expected to lift the curtain but never take a bow. I remember once, I was patching up Dad's gutters in the middle of a thunderstorm. He looked down and joked, "You should get a job as a house husband. You're clearly not man enough to be the breadwinner." Everyone laughed. Even Sophie. Later, when I brought it up to Mom, she just shrugged and said I was being too sensitive. Mom said Dad was just old school. Old school. The same guy who once locked me out of the house in high school because I wore eyeliner. But sure, maybe I was just too sensitive. When Sophie got engaged, she told me over FaceTime. Mom and Dad were sitting right behind her on the couch, grinning like proud producers. They'd helped plan the proposal. Even went ring shopping with Ryan. Me? I found out through a screen. I should have connected the dots then. The signs were there. But a part of me still believed, if I did enough, gave enough, maybe they'd finally see me as someone who mattered. I covered the $800 for the engagement photo shoot. Built their wedding website from scratch. Designed custom invitations. Put down the venue deposit when Mom claimed her card was acting up. I was laying the foundation for their dream day, brick by brick, while they tossed me scraps and called me such a good sport. Then the messages started rolling in. First it was Aunt Clara. "Hey, I heard you're not invited to the ceremony. Is that true?" Then Uncle Tom chimed in. "Did you say something to Ryan's dad? Just curious." But what really shattered me was a Facebook post. A picture of Sophie and Ryan with my parents, standing in front of a barn lit up like a Pinterest board. The caption read, "So proud of our family. Can't wait for the big day with all the right people by our side." The right people. I wasn't even tagged. I scrolled through the comments out of habit. One of Sophie's friends asked, "Is Ethan going to be there? He was always so funny." Sophie's reply, "We're keeping things small. Just people we trust. Just people we trust." Those words hit harder than anything else. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I went through every receipt, every message, every time they made me feel guilty for asking to be paid back. And that's when it really sank in. I was the only one in this family who gave without expecting something in return. And I was the only one who never got anything back. About a week later, I got a group text. "Hi family. Can everyone pitch in for Sophie's bridal shower decorations? Ethan, since you're so good with websites, can you make a landing page for RSVPs? Hugs and kisses." I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, Sophie messaged me directly. "Can you just do this one thing without being passive-aggressive?" So instead of replying, I logged into the venue account. Even though the deposit was marked non-refundable, I'd quietly added wedding insurance when I booked it, just a tiny checkbox nobody noticed. Filed a claim under family conflict. They refunded 90% of the $2,700. Then I opened up Canva. One by one, I deleted every file I'd created. RSVPs, seating charts. Welcome signs. Gone. I made one final design. A blank page with the words, "Ask Ryan's dad to fix this." Then I shared it with everyone involved in the wedding. That's when all hell broke loose. 3 hours later, Mom called, voice shaking, frantic. "What are you doing? Do you realize how this looks?" I said, "Yeah. That's the whole point." Then Dad called. No warm-up, just yelling. "You've always been jealous of Sophie. That's what this is. You can't stand her having a better life." I held the phone out and stared at it for a second before hanging up. That night, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Sophie posted a vague Instagram story. "Betrayal always comes from those closest to you." Then Mom uploaded a photo of Sophie crying, with the caption, "Nothing hurts more than your own brother trying to ruin your special day." People started messaging me. Friends. Cousins. A few asked if I was okay. Most didn't. Most just said stuff like, "Why would you ruin her wedding?" I didn't respond to any of them. And then, out of nowhere, I got a package. No return address. Yellow envelope. Inside, a printed screenshot. It was a message thread from Sophie's group chat with her bridesmaids. She was laughing. "We'll get Ethan to pay for the cake too. Just guilt him about being the only brother. Works every time." Another message. "Ryan doesn't even like him. He says Ethan gives him the creeps lol. And then. He won't be at the wedding. I'll make sure of it. Watch." Right on top was a sticky note. Just one line, handwritten in familiar handwriting. "You deserve better. A." I didn't know who A was. But I would. And when I found out, everything changed. Because A didn't just have screenshots. I had audio. And the second I heard it, I knew exactly what I was going to do. At the rehearsal dinner. It was held at a snobby vineyard about 30 minutes outside the city. They called it rustic luxury. I called it overpriced wine and fairy lights stapled to trees. But I showed up. Clean cut. Calm. Completely focused. I didn't show up to eat. I came to shut the whole circus down. I walked in just as they were raising glasses, mid-toast. Sophie was laughing, Ryan had his arm draped around her, and Dad looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Mom didn't even try to meet my eyes. They clearly weren't expecting me to be there. That much was obvious. In their version of the story, I was supposed to be the villain, the bitter brother who couldn't let things go, who just had to ruin everything. But I wasn't angry. I was finished. I walked straight to the front of the room and tapped a glass with my finger. "Sorry to interrupt," I said. Voices dropped. The air froze. Someone gave a nervous laugh. Sophie's smile cracked into a frown. I pulled a small speaker from my jacket and set it down gently on the table. Then I held up a flash drive. Ryan stood up, tense. "What are you doing?" I looked him in the eye. "Giving you exactly what you've earned." Then I pressed play. A girl's voice filled the room. Sophie's voice. Laughing. "We'll get Ethan to pay for the cake too. Just guilt him about being the only brother. Works every time." The whole room shifted. Chairs creaked. Someone gasped. A fork hit the floor. I didn't move. Then another voice kicked in. Another message. "Ryan doesn't even like him. He says Ethan gives him the creeps, lol." Ryan's face turned ghost white. Sophie sprang toward the speaker like she was going to grab it. I stepped between her and the table. "Sit down." I wasn't asking. Then came the last clip. Sophie again, this time in a low, smug tone. "He won't be at the wedding. I'll make sure of it. Watch." I hit pause. Looked around the room. Any questions? Ryan looked like he wanted to speak but didn't know how. My father shot up, red in the face. "You think this is appropriate? You think?" "Sit down," I snapped. And for the first time in my entire life, he actually did. I turned to Sophie. "I've spent over 12 grand on this wedding. Built your website, dealt with vendors, paid for your florist, your venue, everything. I did it because, foolishly, I thought that's what family did." Sophie was trembling. Mascara streaked her cheek. "You don't get it." "No," I said. "You don't get it. You never did. You didn't want a brother. You wanted a walking ATM." Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Inside were printed copies of everything, text threads, payment receipts, PayPal logs, all the stuff they assumed I'd forget or ignore. Even the group chat where Sophie called me the family's free wedding planner. I handed the folder to Ryan. Still want to marry her? He stared at the papers like they were written in a language he didn't speak. Said nothing. Then someone stood up at the back of the room. A woman in a gray coat, with a lanyard badge and a phone in hand. Sorry to interrupt, she said. I'm Alexis. Ethan and I used to work together. I also run a digital forensics firm. Ethan asked me to authenticate some files. She turned to Sophie. And confirmed they weren't manipulated. She held up her phone. This audio? It's completely real. No edits, no cuts. Pulled directly from a WhatsApp backup linked to your old number. Metadata confirms it. Sophie looked like she'd been slapped. Mom gasped. Dad barked, is this some kind of joke? Alexis just smiled. Not even a little. And then came the real twist. Ryan turned to Sophie. You told me Ethan said awful things to you. That he threatened you. That he was unstable. He held up the folder. You lied. Sophie reached for his arm. No, Ryan. I just. Don't. Touch. Me. That was the spark. Then the room exploded. My aunt stood and started shouting. Someone knocked over a wine glass. Mom tried to speak but couldn't get a full word out. And through all of it, I stood perfectly still. Calm. Quiet. Just watching it all fall apart. When the noise hit its peak, I raised my voice one last time. I'm not coming to the wedding. You already made that choice. But now, you get to do it without my money, my support, or my silence. I turned toward my parents. You cut me out the moment I stopped playing the puppet. So now, I'm cutting the strings too. I turned to leave. And just as I reached the door, Ryan spoke. I'm calling it off, he said. Loud. Clear. And Sophie? She screamed. Her scream cut through the air like shattered glass. You can't do this here. Oh, I said, nodding toward Ryan. Looks like he already did. Then I turned and walked out. No dramatic soundtrack. No slow-motion shot. Just the sound of their carefully crafted illusion crumbling behind me. I didn't head home after that. Didn't even bother with the highway. I took the back roads, north. Winding roads. No traffic. No signal. A month earlier, I'd quietly signed a lease on a tiny cottage way out in a forgotten corner of the state. Population, 600. One diner. One gas pump. And best of all, nobody there knew my name. Which was exactly why I chose it. I paid for 6 months up front. No forwarding address. No trail to follow. Just stillness. For the first 3 days, I didn't touch my phone. Didn't open emails. Didn't speak a word to anyone. I sat out on the porch with a thermos full of black coffee, watching birds fight over branches like they were sacred ground. I didn't feel victorious. I felt something better. Free. No more pressure pressing into my shoulders. No more guilt trickling through every interaction. No one calling to ask for cash, pretending to care until the money hit their account. By day 4, I wandered into town and finally did something I'd always been too embarrassed to try. I enrolled in a course at the local college, archival preservation. Old newspapers. Letters from people no one remembered. Faded ink. Dusty boxes. And for the first time in forever, I was surrounded by records that told the truth. No performances. No spin. No unspoken obligation syndrome. I started volunteering at the county museum, cataloging photos from the 50s, fixing up a busted microfilm reader. And the best part? No one noticed. No one praised me. And I didn't care. Because for once, it was mine. Quietly mine. The messages started rolling in about a week later. Old Gmail notifications. Emergency phone alerts. I didn't open them. Didn't need to. The subject line said enough. Can we just talk? You went too far. We're still family. Then came the missed calls. Dozens of them, blocked numbers, unknown IDs. I kept the phone powered off. Because they weren't reaching out to reconcile. They just wanted to hit reset, get the game back under their control. That's what scared them. Not the receipts. Not the truth. The silence. They had no clue what I'd do next, and for the first time ever. I held the cards. 3 weeks later, a court notice got forwarded to my old address. Apparently, my father had tried to sell off a chunk of family property. What he didn't know was that I'd locked that deed 2 years earlier. After he tried, by accident, to remortgage it without telling me. I left it in legal limbo, just waiting. And he pulled the trigger all by himself. The result? His deal blew up. The buyer walked away. And he got slapped with a fraud investigation. Not because I went after him. But because, for once, I didn't step in to save him. I didn't start a blog. Didn't drop screenshots in the family group chat. Didn't make a dramatic Facebook post. I just disappeared. No birthday calls. No, can you help us out? No guilt-soaked favors. And that was what broke them. Because narcissists don't fear consequences. They fear becoming irrelevant. They fear standing on stage and realizing the audience has left. One morning, I stopped by the post office to pick up a small package I'd ordered. While I stood in line, someone behind me was on the phone, chatting. I heard Sophie's fiancé walked out right before the wedding. Then her brother vanished and took all his money with him. I didn't turn around. I never posted a single thing. Never gave an interview. Never explained myself. I just became unreachable. No address. No number. No access. They thought silence meant surrender. But silence was the move. Surgical. Clean. Final. Not a dramatic goodbye with tears and speeches. Just absence. The kind they can't spin. The kind that lingers when the show ends and the lights go out. They can't guilt me anymore. Can't text me when rent's overdue. Can't call when the card bounces. Can't pretend things are fine just long enough to ask for another favor. Because I'm gone. And I'm not coming back. Because there's no more we. There's only them. And a mailbox that quietly says, no message received. You know what's wild? When you finally cut ties with the people who built their comfort on your back. They don't collapse right away. They just freeze. Like someone hit the mute button and they're scrambling to turn the volume back on. That's exactly how it went down. After everything. After the explosion at the rehearsal dinner, the endless calls, the aching silence. They still believed I'd return. Because I always did. But this time, I didn't. I didn't just change my phone number. I swapped carriers. Switched to a new country code. No auto-responses. No digital trail. Nothing. I shut down the joint emergency account Dad had linked to mine. Moved my bank statements into a private, encrypted vault. Updated my medical power of attorney and cleared every family name. Even changed the emergency contact on my driver's license. From mom to no one. They don't know where I live. Where I work. Whether I'm still in the state. The country. Or even, still breathing. And that uncertainty. It eats them alive. About a month ago, I went back. Just once. Not to the house. Not to that fake lamb vineyard. I drove past the wedding venue. The one I cancelled. It was empty. A crooked "for lease" sign clung to the front gate. A dead bouquet lay smashed in the gravel like a broken promise. It felt fitting. I rolled down my window. The air smelled like coming rain and old regrets. Before I pulled away, I did one last thing. I walked up to the mailbox near the main gate and slid in a small envelope. No name. No return address. Inside, a copy of the last invoice I paid for that wedding. Taped to it was a single sticky note. Thanks for nothing. I don't check the old email anymore. But sometimes, when I'm feeling curious, I log in just to see the flood still rolling in. One subject line read: "Please just talk to us." Didn't open it. Another said: "We don't know who you are anymore." That one. That made me smile. Because finally, they got something right. I'm not the guy who covered bills in the middle of the night. Not the emergency contact. Not the event coordinator. Not the free therapist. Not the invisible sibling. Not the guilt-strangled son. I'm just a man now. Living a different life. One they can't touch. Can't twist. Can't rewrite. Last week, I installed a new mailbox. Metal. Sleek. Secure. It's one of those locked Dropbox. Once something's in, it doesn't come back out. The installer asked what name I wanted engraved on the plaque. I told him. No name. Just a message. So now, on a small brass plate just under the keyhole, it reads: "This box does not accept apologies." And the silence I hear these days? It's not loneliness. It's peace.